So first of all, we are going to create a cluster. For that, we are cloning this repository, digit DevOps repository, to my local system. So for that, click on code, copy that HTTPS link, go to your terminal and run git clone, and you paste that command. So after that, open the repository using Visual Studio Code. It will be easy to edit. So in that, go to Terraform. So here we are using Kubernetes 1.22 repository branch for creating cluster. So under Terraform, go to sample AWS. In that remote state is useful to store the Terraform state of your cluster. So under variable.tf, edit the cluster name, db name, db username, and also the public key, which is useful to authenticate your code from GitHub. So everything is set ready. Now you have to connect our AWS our local with AWS console. For that, need to create our account in AWS, and it will provide a access and secret key. Copy that and export that in your local. Now your system is connected with AWS console. So if you run Terraform in it, so it will initialize your Terraform script into AWS. We are completed. So we just completed initialization. After Terraform plan and apply. Yeah, Terraform apply. So first we have to run these three commands in remote state directory. So it will ask for confirmation. Click type S. So it will create a DynamoDB database which is useful to store the dynamic data, and also S3 bucket. So completed. So after running these commands, go to sample AWS directory. So here also we have to run those commands. So previously we created DB username and DB name, but password is required to access that DB. So that password we are creating now. So remember this password in future. It will be required again. So for understanding purpose, I am creating all details like cluster name, DB name, DB password, and all with my name only, Gautam. So it is asking for the DB password again. So previously we created only S3 bucket and DynamoDB in remote state directory. Now in sample AWS it will create different tools like VPC IDs, virtual private cloud. So VPC IDs, subnets, security groups, which are nothing but firewalls that is used to communicate between the client and the server in a secured way. So security groups, VPC IDs, and nodes. Nodes are nothing but the cluster virtual machines. So along with that, we are additionally adding Kafka, Elasticsearch Data, Elasticsearch Master, Zookeeper. These are useful for distribution purpose of data. So if a producer will send continuously data, but consumer is not consuming the data, so Kafka will store the data which is sending by continuously sending by producer. If consumer request for any data type, it will send those data to the consumer. So everything is completed. So finally we'll get the output. So volume IDs will got created. So keep it safely in your local these details. So up to now we created Terraform AWS cluster only. So in that cluster we need to deploy our services into that cluster. So what will get output: DB username, instance password, Elasticsearch data and master, Kafka, Zookeeper. For all this volume IDs we got created, and kubeconfig. Kubeconfig is nothing but a it is like a layer between your local to the cluster, so you can access that cluster from your terminal itself by executing that kubeconfig. So after that, to deploy our services, you need to create two YAML files. One is normal demo YAML file and another one is secret YAML file. It contains all the secrets that are required to our services, for example DB username and password, etc. So under YAML file we have to mention all the DB instance link, DB URL, DB host, step by step carefully. After that, don't change anything in the rest of the code. Go down. So here volume IDs got created, right, for Kafka. So copy those volume IDs from your log, from your text editor, and replace it with this YAML file volume IDs. You should change those volume IDs very carefully. Even if one indentation error is there, it won't deploy properly. It will show deployment failure. So here we have to change the private key also. Private key and public key are nothing but the authentication purpose. We are creating those keys. So in GitHub create an auth application and copy paste those client ID, client secret in this secret YAML file. Once everything is done perfectly, check whether these DB and instances are created or not in your AWS account. So in that, go to EC2 Elastic Cloud Computing. It contains all the instances that we had already created. So go to instances in this. So here we mentioned availability region as Virginia. So but we created in AP South 1B, AP South 1B. So change to AP South 1. Then only we can able to see our instances. Yeah, check whether your created instances are there or not. Yes, it is there. Gautami case. So go to RDS, relational database system. Check whether database also created or not. DB instances. Yes, Gautami case DB. So DBA and instances both are created. Okay. Now, so deploy is nothing but executing adding our services code into our cluster. So go to deploy as code, deployer. So here we are using Golang. So Golang is useful. It is like similar to Python and JavaScript. So with this language we can automate our deployment services into our cluster. For example, we can choose modules, how many modules required for our cluster. So each module contain different services. If you require these services, we can a certain number of services, we can add those modules only. So it will ask you for random questions. So here it is asking for kubeconfig file path. So you have to mention your local kubeconfig file. So that one you will get in output only. So copy just kubeconfig from that file, create a new file and save it. So this can be helpful to access your cluster from your terminal at any time. Instantly you can access your cluster. So copy those paths. And paste in Visual Studio here. Okay, your cluster name is EKS Gautam. Yeah, here click go to digit. Here different versions we are using. In that, go to 2.7 and add in, I told you right, modules. So I'm for fast occurrence we are selecting only one module to complete this process instantly, even though it will take so much time to complete. So here you can see that deploying is happening, deploying cluster configs. So these are the nothing but secrets. So what are the services, whatever services required to our environment, I mean cluster, those services will automatically deployed into the AWS cluster. So finally we'll get an output like everything is deployed, have a good day. So now you can verify in Kubernetes cluster using KNS. So it might take some time to run all the pods. Yeah, so you can see all these services. So ingress is nothing but a network traffic controller. So in services, so these are the services we are providing in our in our domain. So my domain name is gautam-demo.digit.org. so this is the load balancer ID. So load balancer ID is useful to access your domain by anyone. So just copy that load balancer ID and add it to GoDaddy domain site. So in that site, if once you added your domain load balancer ID by mentioning your domain name beside it, after that if you type your domain name, it will redirect it to the cluster AWS. So since I don't have access account, it's a payment account, so I'm not adding this load balancer ID in GoDaddy. So like this, if you hit your domain name, it will open your website. In that you can utilize all the services that are providing by us.